Okay, we'll call this regular meeting of the Minot City Planning Commission to order. Can we start with a roll call, please?
Barch. Burning. Bollinger. Gaynor.
Yep. Here.
Hanson.
Yep.
Holbach. Karpenko.
Yes.
Coop.
Yes.
Lartius.
Yes.
Neither.
Yes.
Wagonus.
Yes.
Wetzler. Zimmerman.
Yes. Okay, moving on, could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on here, looking for a motion for approval of the October 31st, 2016 regular Planning Commission meeting minutes, and I do believe that there is going to be one quick
Sure.
addition.
I would approve the minutes with the one recommendation to, on item number 1, like to amend the minutes to reflect that Chairman Zimmerman voted no on that.
That is correct. Is there a
Perfect.
second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Karpenko. Okay, any discussion? Okay, so the motion is to approve the minutes from the October 31st meeting with that one amendment. Please call the roll.
Neither.
Yes.
Wagonus.
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Barch. Gaynor.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Karpenko.
Yes.
Coop.
Yes.
Lartius.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 1. This is an application by LZ Holdings, represented by Travis Zablotny, to subdivide Holbach Homestead Lot 1 and 2, lots to be known as Holbach Homestead Second Edition, lots 1 and 2. Also to annex into city limits proposed Holbach Homestead Second Edition, lots 1 and 2, and adjacent 20th Avenue Southeast right-of-way. This property is located at 1915 Highway 2 bypass the east. And with that, can we get staff comments, please?
Sure. I want to just reflect, we can go to the map, actually. The subject site is bounded on the southeast with the East US Highway 2 bypass, on the north with 20th Avenue Southeast, and it's also bounded along the Souris Mouse River, and to the west is the River Oak subdivision. You may look very closely on that map. You can see to the right side of the page is where the city limit, the actual city limits line exists. The 48.5 acre parcel is proposed to be split in two, with one parcel being 45.9 acres and the other lot 2, which is the subject lot, to be split into 2.5 acres. There's buildings on both lots. On lot 2 is the primary building where the petitioner wants to extend a sewer line to that building. And one of the reasons for him splitting the lot, go back to the other map, please. One of the reasons for him splitting the lot is to basically reduce his assessment fees, sewer assessment fees, for the smaller lot. The applicant has stated a need for an improved sanitary sewer facility. So I believe he's considering both either a septic tank, an improved septic tank, or an extended sewer line. Now, if he extends the sewer line to the site, because it's on city boundary, it's city policy to annex the property into the city. So that's the second part of what's being proposed today. The site right now is being used as a farm implement dealership. Now we can go to the next map. And what you can see in red, that's the future land use map. And it shows that the future land use for that site is commercial. We just wanted to point that out. And our recommendation is to recommend approval with the condition that the existing building located on lot 2 connected to the city sewer as per approved design per city specifications and standards.
Thank you. And is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Please come forward. And do we still have the sign-up sheet up there?
I am Travis Zablotny. Basically just wanted to talk a little bit about what we were doing and why. We have a septic system that's currently being used at the dealership for the restrooms and then the wash bay and floor drains that are there. It's kind of ran its useful life, so it's time to do something different. We thought that the wisest thing to do would have been to hook up to the city sewer. Closest connection is in Apple Grove, a little ways in on the road off of 20th. Ultimately, we had a system engineered to meet city specs or meet city standard, let's put it that way, or requirements or approval. Isn't full city spec because it's not a $200,000 lift station that we were going to put in. We were basically going to put in a lift station that would service our property. Got all that together, had the plans drawn up, had it bid. It's going to cost about $120,000 to do that. It's awful expensive, obviously, to put that in for one facility, one business. Still thought that might be the better way to go until I was notified that we would have to annex, which I was told I should have known that, and maybe I should have. But nonetheless, the problem with annexing is that I'm going to spend $120,000 to connect the city sewer, be assessed another $9,000 to $10,000 a year in taxes, and pay to be hooked to the sewer, and essentially get nothing from the city for that in return. It's a privately owned sewer system, and the only way the city will take it over is if I build a $200,000 lift station, which doesn't make sense. So long and the short of it is financially it makes more sense to go to a septic system is really what it makes, and we'll have to do something with wash water, which may require a detention pond of some sort that the health department will approve. Ultimately, I think that it would be in our best interest, it would be in the city's best interest to have us hooked up. We're footing the bill to get there. There's really no new cost to the city. There's nothing the city's providing. I'm told that I'll get city fire service, which really doesn't give me anything over and above what we've got already with with rural fire. That we would get city police service, which doesn't really get me anything over county. Water will never come there because it's in the floodplain, or at least that's what I'm told. No lights, no streets, just a $9,000 tax bill so we can hook up and have this sewer treated by a system that's, probably better designed to do that. And because it's in the floodplain, I can't do a lot to develop or build on this site in the future without raising that. So I've got 50 acres that I'm going to pay taxes on, be annexed into the city, and really no benefit. So the reason I'm standing here is to point that out, the fact that there are those issues that exist. We're fortunate enough to have to follow all the city codes because we're in the 2 mile if we want to do anything, but we're fortunate enough as well to not have any benefits of the city. I would prefer to put the the sewer system in to go to the city, but I won't do that if we're annexed. And so wanted to, like I said, bring that to your attention, all the issues that are there. I know there are other scenarios around the city that similar things exist, and it seems as we have a all or none type deal, and I think it warrants some consideration by Planning Commission and City Council to do something that will address these properties, and ultimately, when we can use some services, if we got to pay more for sewer, because we're on it and there's some maintenance potentially on the trunk that we hook to in the future, we pay a little more, but it doesn't make sense for us to have to be fully annexed. And so if the requirement to be annexed would not be waived, I guess we'd just pull our application and probably would end up going with a septic system again. So any questions?
Okay. Yep, Mr. Zabatny, thank you. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Karpenko?
Thank you. Just a question, Travis. I'm sure you've done this. What other options exist for you in subdividing, breaking out that property even further into, not such big chunks, so that in order, if you are annexed, your property tax bill is less, and if you're farming 25 acres, so is there another way? I'm sure you've looked at that.
Well, I guess that question is can we own the property that abuts? Can a subdivision or an owner own all the property that's adjacent to the city limits and subdivide off a part and be exempted from being annexed? Because that's really what we're doing. The sewer hooks to the lot 2 that you're looking at, which would not touch any city limits. The rest of it does.
Already goes through lot 1 to get to lot 2,
So apparently the answer to that, at least as perceived by staff, is that we can't. If we own it all, apparently we have to annex. I guess I don't know if that's someone's interpretation or that's fact. I don't know. You can maybe answer that for me in your discussions.
I'm not sure if the city attorney wants to comment on that, or maybe the city engineer with respect to sort of an all or nothing on the annexation. Could you stand aside real quick, Mr. Zabatny, and then Mr. Meyer, could you come up, please, and comment regarding the annexation requirement that may cause Mr. Zabatny to balk or to hold this or withdraw this proposal?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, just for a little context of what Mr. Zabatny is proposing, basically what he's asking for, he's going to install a private grinder pump that would handle his building specific. And then his connection would be, for all intents and purposes, a dedicated service line like you'd have from your house out to the city's main in the street. In his case, it's just several hundred feet long instead of your maybe typical 40 or 50 feet. We just so happen to have a sanitary sewer system that was installed many years ago for the Apple Grove subdivision. Had it not been for that sewer system nearby, most likely his only option then would be to install a septic system. It's still his choice whether he wants to install this sewer system and connect to ours or have a septic system. I guess, quite frankly, we don't really care either way. It's going to be up to him as to what he wants to do. However, if he wants to hook to our sanitary sewer system, there's a certain amount of requirements that have to follow. One of them is the connection to our system would have to be to city specs. He's not installing a traditional 8-inch sewer main with manholes that others could connect to. It's a private system. He'd have to get an encroachment agreement from the city council to enter into that right-of-way with that private piece of infrastructure. In this case, because he's platting this subdivision, it's adjacent to city limits, and city ordinance, it specifies that you would have to annex into the city limits. We've established connection fees for every single parcel in town, and it depends. The fee you pay depends on which sewer system you connect to. And so if you're in South Minot and you connect to the Puppy Dog system, there's a fee for that. If you connect to the Minot system, it depends on which lift stations it goes through. There's a different fee accordingly for that. Those fees are set by city council, so staff doesn't have the leeway to say, well, you can pay this and you can pay this. It's set, and it's set by land area, or if you're in a different system, it's the type of connection. So all that being said, what we have to work with is what we have to work with. So, I guess it's up to Mr. Zabatny what he wants to do. If he wants to put in the septic system, he can do that. He wouldn't have to annex because he's not utilizing any city services. If he wants to connect to our city sanitary sewer system, he can certainly do that. We have some pending plans that look pretty good. I think there's a couple comments that need to be addressed. He could have the work done, and then we'll go through the process for the encroachment, and then he'd be annexed into the city. So it's kind of up to him.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioners, questions for the city engineer? Yep. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Meyer.
welcome.
Yep. Mr. Zabatny, yep,
I think
please.
the question that he came up here
Could you
for
please go back to the, yep, thank you, just so
I
everybody
guess
can hear
I
you,
want to
thank
find
you.
out if you can answer that as to whether or not because part of the property is touching city limits and the part that we're servicing the sewer is not, if the annexation requirement still is there, because and I
Mr.
say
Zablotny,
that
can you
because
just speak into the
Apple
microphone so we
Grove-
can hear? Thank
Apple
you.
Grove is not annexed into the city, even though the sewer system was turned over to the city and they pay double sewer fees, as I understand. So that same system that I'm going into, utilized by them, they're not annexed. And two, for the record, I have no issue with the design requirements, the criteria. I'm aware of it all. It's all been addressed. And, you know, the reason we're doing this exercise in the first place is because, if I understand right, the connection fee is based on acreage, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because somebody could have a single-family home on 5 acres, and which isn't likely in the city, right? But anyway, it could be, and have to pay this huge connection fee where a person with a quarter-acre lot pays less, if I understand that right. And that's why we're doing this. Seems to me something should be rectified there on a type of use fee connection anyway. So
Yeah, and it sounds like, if I heard the city
Subdividing.
engineer correctly, that's a city council determination with respect to the various hookup fees, you know, respective to the sewer systems that they're going into. I guess my question for you, Mr. Zablotny, is just based on your kind of refreshed understanding of the situation and the things. Would you prefer the commission hold this? Did you want to pull this, as you seem to allude to in your opening comments, with respect to you kind of, you know, weighing the cost benefit analysis of hooking up, the cost of that, and the fact that it seemed like there was a lack of benefits in your mind? Do you have a particular preference right now? Because it seems like, as the city engineer said, and at least I gathered from your comments, that it is kind of the ball in your court. And as you know, this commission can only pass along recommendations, and as the city engineer said, in many cases it's the city council that sets rates or makes determinations like that. So from the standpoint of us addressing the situation as it is now, what would be your
So to
preference?
answer your question, is we were fully prepared to put in the system to hook to the city, is that was probably the smartest thing to do ultimately when it comes to dealing with the fluid, the sewer. Had no issues with any of that, was going through this process to subdivide, so the connection fee was reduced, and found out just as the application was being turned in that would be required to be annexed. And so the motion that I'd be looking for from this body is ultimately to, you know, approve the subdivision, approve the connection to the sewer, and not require annexation due to the circumstances that there'll be one of a slate of 5 or 6 city services that I get. And I'd rather, you know, I'd be willing to pay a higher sewer connection or monthly sewer fee, but to pay that tax obligation forever with absolutely no, you know, no benefits, it's not.
And I guess
doesn't make
on your
sense. So-
request there, I would defer to the city attorney from the standpoint, this commission cannot separate that requirement with respect to the annexation requirement for being hooked up to the city services, correct?
If the city planning commission can grant the connection to the city services but not the annexation, I think that, like the city engineer stated, that in order to receive city services, you have to annex.
Have to annex. Yes, okay. So it sounds like it's not a workable recommendation or a motion that this commission could pass. So with that in mind, Mr.
So there's
Zablotny, do you
no-
have a preference on holding this?
No
or
variance available,
Pardon me?
no variance option available in that regard.
I would defer to either the city attorney or the planning director.
Commissioner Zablotny, a variance wouldn't be an option in this type of situation unless the planning director.
No, variances relate to the zoning code, not to situations like this.
Okay, so long and short of it, then we'll pull it, and
Okay.
we'll go a different
Okay.
direction.
Okay, so we'll consider this agenda item pulled then from this agenda, and it will not go to city council next week. Okay, thank you, Mr. Zablotny. Is there anybody else in the audience that needed to comment on this at all? Okay. Moving on here, on other business. It's hereby noticed, our notice is hereby given that on November 28th, 2016, the Minot Planning Commission will hold a public hearing to discuss changes to the zoning ordinance regarding references to the city council. And this is essentially the upcoming change of the city council size and the requirements for various majorities and supermajorities and things with respect to votes that need to be included in the zoning ordinance update. And as such, we will need a motion in a second and a vote on that to pass this along to the city council. But with that quick introduction, I'll allow the city attorney to add any further comments or details if she feels necessary. Otherwise, we can move that along to a vote.
Commissioner Zlotny, like you said, these are just some amendments.
Zimmerman.
Oh, Zimmerman,
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
Aziz gets
I think I
very
did
easy
that
to-
twice now.
That's okay. I had to bust you on the second one.
Sorry about that. Z's. You know.
Yeah.
These are just amendments to the zoning code, which referred to 8 votes for the city council. We're changed that to 4, which will be the new majority. They'll be effective at the end of June when the new city council is seated. And there's also one reference to a 2/3 majority, and that was removed from the regular city ordinance. So that was just changed to supermajority, which is still in our regular city ordinance. So.
Okay, thank you. And with that, can we have a motion, please, to approve that change as summarized by the city attorney?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Wagner, second? Okay, Commissioner Karpenko, any discussion?
One quick discussion,
Yes,
since we're on
please,
this.
Commissioner Neither?
Yep, yes,
No
sir.
problem.
Chairman. We talked briefly, you and I, about the majority of those present versus a total majority. It seemed to be a problem in some previous planning meetings when we have, 10 or 9 individuals that show up to a meeting and a majority is needed. A majority of those presents passes here, but the variance doesn't pass because there's not a majority of every individual. Is that something that we could take up in a subcommittee or in the steering committee to address that, or?
City attorney, please.
Commissioner Neither, that is certainly something that the steering committee can address. The planning director could probably add it to the agenda for the next steering committee meeting. And there are several references to majority of the planning commission in the zoning code, and I guess you would probably want to address all of them. There are also references like that in our regular city ordinances for majority of the entire city council, regardless of how many people are present. So I think that in those situations, maybe it was just contemplated that that was a more serious decision or a more important decision, and that's why that was included, but that can certainly be addressed at a steering committee level.
Sure.
Quick, thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Wagner,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Barch, Gaynor,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Karpenko,
Yes.
Coop,
Yes.
Larches, Neither.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and with no other business, we'll adjourn this meeting. Oh,
We do have.
pardon me. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. We'll unadjourn this. Our planning director wanted to introduce a few new staff members, so please. Robert.
Yeah, I wanted to welcome Randy Barch and Jeanette Larches as our 2 new planning commissioners.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you.